Welcome to our Substack Live, which is the United States and Iran are at war special.
Yep.
At about 2 a.m. Eastern Time, President Trump put out a pre-recorded video uh, that announced the United States was carrying out massive air attacks, a air campaign against Iran, which is expected to last for days, not for a few hours or a very short time. These aren't strikes. He called it a continuous military operations, which is a campaign. The United States, in cooperation and conjunction with carrying out strikes all around Iran. First component of that was the attempted assassination and execution of the Iranian leadership, what they called a decapitation strike. That was the first thing that went out. U.S. Navy warships throughout the Arabian Gulf fired off hundreds of missiles. U.S. aircraft carrier air wings started attacking the Iranian Navy, as well as launching airstrikes into Iranian targets. The U.S. Air Force was carrying out air raids all over the country. And the stated objective by President Trump is that this is a regime change operation. He intends to change the government of Iran through these attacks, which is a mean trick. And we're going to talk about that extensively, how it's a little difficult to change the regime from an airplane dropping bombs on the people who you seem to want to support. Second was the elimination, what we would call not a regime. Uh, if the first objective was regime change, the second objective is regime degradation, where they wanted to remove the ballistic missile production capabilities, target ballistic missile launchers, and also destroy drone storage facilities and places that drones were being manufactured in order to support operations again, so that Iran would not be able to carry out ballistic missile attacks on Israel and other Gulf states. That was the second objective. The third objective was to attack and remove the threat in the Persian Gulf or Arabian Gulf, depends on which perspective you come from the Iranian Navy. So that's one, regime. Two, three, destroy Iranian Navy and stop its proxies to prevent a regional war. Now, let me sum up, and I'll let Jaacob talk because he's been watching this as long as I have this morning. The problem is Iran immediately escalated this to a regional war. They have attacked in the following order, not limited to, they have attacked the United Arab Emirates. They are bombing the U.S. air base at Afra. As you know, I lived in the UAE for 10 years. I saw that base being built and was there for the opening ceremony. When that base was built, it was supposed to be a UAE fighter jet base. It was turned over to the Americans, first for intelligence and surveillance, and then now fighter and logistics support. It is being bombarded right now, and they are reporting multiple hits in the city of Abu Dhabi and off of Abu Dhabi. Also, air defense is working around that city. Doha, Qatar has been hit. Not only the Al Udeid base in Doha, but there have been reports of other missiles falling. We don't know whether those were missiles knocked off course or air defense missiles, which may have gone stupid and just come down. But Doha, Qatar is reporting multiple explosions. Manama, Bahrain, where I lived as part of the U.S. Fifth Fleet, which is called Naval Support Activity Bahrain, took a direct hit on U.S. Central Command forward headquarters. I'm sorry, not Central Command, U.S. Naval Forces forward headquarters, the U.S. Fifth Fleet. That is it's a wide base, but it is a low base. And it is easy to see from the apartment complexes nearby. You can watch every building in there. So the Iranians probably had excellent intelligence there. The facility is also called the GCC, that's the Gulf Cooperation Council Joint Maritime Command Post. But that is also there in Manai, and we have video of that taking a direct hit. Bases in Kuwait have been struck, including the Ali Al Salam Air Base, and the Central Command Forward headquarters base area, right? That they have. I think it's in Arjan, um, in Kuwait. We'll get those names all cleared up. The city of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the capital of Saudi, reported explosions in it, which tells me several things. Number one, about these GCC cities being struck, these Gulf state cities being struck. U.S. air defense and their air defense systems are not protecting them. They are being penetrated by the Iranians. We actually have a video of a surface to air missile that's in Kuwait shooting down a missile literally at the last moment, possibly, less than a kilometer in the air from the ballistic missile site, which showed you the Patriot missile battery was the target. It is intense combat is going on everywhere throughout the region. Jordan reported multiple hits at a U.S. supporting air base in northeastern Jordan. Israel is reporting hits in Israel proper, mainly in the Jerusalem and southern Israel area near Dimona, the nuclear power plant. There's been reports of at least one hit that penetrated Tel Aviv. Listen to me. And there have been reports that U.S. forces have been struck in Iraq, and that Iraqi militias, the Hashib Shabi, are attacking U.S. forces. Stop me if you've heard this story. This is no longer a local war. Oh, and I forgot. The Houthis declared war this morning, and they have now declared the Bab el-Mandab waterway separating Yemen from Africa, from Eritrea, is now going to be shut down by their suicide boats, ballistic missiles, raising the price of shipping astronomically there. So all of these things are going on. The U.S. Navy has a carrier off of Israel, and they have a carrier in the northern Indian Ocean, and they are launching airstrikes by the hundred. The ship we call USS Saudi Arabia, which and is now USS Israel, is launching attacks consistently. Donald Trump has made it pretty clear this is not a 4-day campaign like he said a few days ago. This will be a multi-day campaign. The Iranians could make this go into weeks, if not months, of tit for tat operations as they gather their capability, as they rebound. And we haven't even seen where the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's asymmetric capabilities, right? That's troops and forces that could align with the Hashib Shabi of Iraq and penetrate and invade Kuwait. You never know. Things are, or as happened in 1987, Iranian Revolutionary Guard boat out flooding the Arabian Gulf and 5, 10 little boat squadrons and landing in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Abu Dhabi. From what I've seen this morning, the Gulf states are not doing very well defending themselves. Although Saudi Arabia has made it clear and the UAE have made it clear they are now going to fully cooperate with the United States in this campaign. So, again, if you are one of the 410 people who have woken up to this tweet, the United States is at war. The entire Middle East, Persian Gulf region is now at war. Jacob.
Exactly. And I've just come off Danish TV, and I was asked because, all the Danish politicians and European politicians are talking about de-escalation. And I basically said, keep on dreaming, because one thing we can say for sure, Trump is going for the full package. And the Iranians are going to go for the full package as well and ignite as much as they can, ignite as many fires as they can around the Middle East. and this is the way it will go. And then, we can already say that one of the objectives you talked about, Malcolm, was this objective of diminishing the ability to strike in the Middle East that has failed, as we can see from all the strikes that you just mentioned everywhere. And that's going to go on. I mean, you can say after the Israeli campaign against Hezbollah that they are significantly weakened, and their ability to ignite fires in Lebanon and in Israel is diminished severely. That's a positive at least, but still there remains so much capability around, and the Houthis, Hashd al-Shabi in Iraq in particular, and all the other groups. So yeah, there will be a lot of casualties following from this. That's for sure. This whole project of this whole fantasy that the Iranian people will then rise up and remove the regime is also a fantasy, because they know how to protect themselves. They're weakened. They've been weakened for years, but they still have that ability to quell whatever comes at them. And besides that, who will take over? There will be chaos and instability for years to come. So of course, this plan hasn't been thought through, and who will, this whole thing of stabilization and grabbing the power in Iran and also in the neighboring countries is not thought through. There'll be power vacuum. If this whole scenario of the Iranian people toppling regime, if that comes through, I doubt it. But if it happens, it will be a power vacuum, and we all remember how it turned out in Libya when Gaddafi was moved from above. And the message I sent you, Malcolm, I don't know if you saw it. I said this is Gaddafi times 2 million or something, because because this is certainly not Libya, and Libya has been bad enough. This is millions of times worse. So yeah.
Well, let me interject. I was on an X Spaces just after the attacks, about 30 minutes after the attacks went. And of course, the Israelis were already announcing that their decapitation of government leaders with the United States was 100% successful. They were putting out information warfare, right, which is what we used to call propaganda, that the Ayatollah Khamenei was dead because they had struck his compound. They had verified that he was in the compound. Well, I got to tell you something that I caution people. And I actually had an Iranian who came up on this. You hate Iran. You hate the people of Iran. You never say anything positive. The Shah of Iran is coming back. Reza Pahlavi is coming back. You don't understand the Iranian people. I have been working that region for 40 years. My first deployment to the Persian Gulf or Arabian Gulf was 1985. Okay. I lived there for a decade just recently. So, when I saw all this buildup, and I understand these people. I've sat in the diwans, right? The parlors where people assumed I was just an American Muslim, and drank the tea, prayed, ate the candies, and drank whiskey with these guys, and really got their deep street level perspective. This beef with Iran is not just because of the Ayatollah Khamenei back in 1979. From the Iranian perspective, their opposition to the Arabs in the Gulf states is not just about supporting Israel, it's supporting America. This has been going on since the first Islamic Civil War, the first Islamic fitna in 656. And this is an ongoing, unspoken battle between the people who supported Khalif Ali right? The son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad as the third caliph who was assassinated, and the people who support the elected non-linear heredity caliphs that came after that, after the death of Abu Bakr. And one section segmented and became Shia, the Shia Muslims, and the other 85% since that time are the Sunnah. And it's really a question of who controls Islam in the end. Iran has been extending itself through its proxies. It has always been a question about getting those their little mosque called Husseinias out onto the street, being more fervent and using Israel, attacking Israel as the whipping boy of this very, very, very centuries old war. So, but for Saudi Arabia's perspective, it's about oil and money, right? And defending themselves against a country that has 93 million people, and now have under them about 20 million Iraqis who listen and take their cues from Iran. So, it has always been this thought in their mind that Iran could someday ruin everything they've built through invasion. That almost happened in 1987. I'm going to tell you straight up. It's in my memoir. It's been cleared by the Pentagon.
Oh,
Iran,
congratulations.
thank you. It took 22 months to get my memoir cleared, read by 6 different agencies. But anyway, there was an attempt to invade Saudi Arabia's oil fields in September 1987. And they had over 3,000 Revolutionary Guardsmen on small boats who had orders to attack Kuwait, Saudi Arabia's offshore platforms, storm Dammam, Saudi Arabia, and fucking blow up everything, make a toehold, and then be prepared for a follow-on invasion force. That could happen in the next 48 to 96 hours. Now, it may not be in that sense that they're going to invade Saudi Arabia, but they can use asymmetric warfare, right? The commando forces that they have. My problem with the pro-regime or pro-monarchy crew is that they have an unrealistic view. They believe that they're talking America into this war, and now the people from the street of Iran will rise up and overthrow that regime. That's a fantasy. I've been in that war. That was called the Operation Iraqi Freedom. I had people this morning telling me children are dancing in the streets. People are doing this. Ahmed Chalabi, we're getting Chalabied, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That
We're
is,
getting Jalabi.
Ahmed Chalabi was the Iraqi American slick businessman who somehow avoided 1,000 assassination attempts, who convinced Dick Cheney to invade Iraq. But we invaded, lost almost 5,000 service members in the subsequent Civil War, insurgency, and terror war. We're not doing that here. We're just dropping bombs. And when the bombs blow up, if you're watching Al Jazeera, I've got Al Jazeera on right now, which is always the best source in a Middle East war. Okay, always. These guys would be at attack sites way before I could get there in most parts of the Middle East. They're excellent. And they tend to work around or with or near our opponents for open access. So when they were showing you these shots of bomb craters through buildings breaking rebar in Tehran, that's it. That's it. That's all the effect that bomb has. Now, the Iranian people are very geopolitically sophisticated. The average Iranian is 10 times smarter than the most educated American on the geopolitics of that region. They are a guy on the street selling water is far more sophisticated and better educated than 90% of Americans. So I'm not joking, not joking. But they understand that you blow up IRGC as headquarters in Dezful or Isfahan or Bandar Abbas, or you sink the boats at the port of Bandar Abbas. there's still 93 million people there, and there's still 2, 3, 4 million people who support the regime and are willing to kill you to keep that regime going. So you have a choice. Rise up, go to the police stations, kill the cops, maybe if you're not going to get killed, and start an uprising, take their rifles, and have what we call a blood revolution, like the Iranians did in 1979, which took them decades to get to that point.
Yeah.
Or get out in the street with people power and get killed by the tens of thousands and have a color revolution. But most Iranians, of that 93 million people, I'm going to go on a limb right now and say 90 million of them are going to go shopping to the souk and get what they need for their family. Some people are going to lay away some stuff. They're all going to go to the cafe and drink and have coffee and talk about this. They're going to go and they're all going to want to learn what's going on. What's that big smoke cloud over there? This is not impacting their life. Shock and awe, this isn't. I call attention to this one fact here, Jacob. This attack occurred midday, high noon. High noon. The first strikes hit at 12 noon on Saturday. Now, I've lived in that region for decades. I've carried out and planned strikes all over the Middle East. I was part of the Middle East headquarters in Bahrain. I fought the Iranians in 1988. I can now say I'm not the only American who ever fought the Iranians. And now there's loads of us, right? But 12 noon on Saturday, which is the second day of the weekend. It's the real weekend day. Friday, Thursday night is your party night. Friday, you go to mosque. Saturday, you go shopping to prepare for the week. If we had struck at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. on Sunday, we would have been killing people in the regime infrastructure. But another thing is they have, in some instances, hours of warning as these cruise missiles are detected, or as the first strikes in Western Iran hit. And all you have to do is this. You take one sip of coffee, you put your coffee cup down, you get your coat, your hat, your rifle, you leave the building. And you go and you hang out with your buddies on the street corner at the cafe, which has better service than your office, and wait for the bombs to hit. But you're alive, and the poor watch officers, the United States has a history of killing watch officers. These are people who are forced to stay in the buildings, and janitors, right?
Yeah.
We always want this measured approach. You either kill to kill or you kill not to kill. The Israelis kill to kill. They attack to kill, right? If they hit in the middle of the night because they know where your girlfriend's house is, all right? They know where you're sleeping. But the United States, we hit at 12 noon. These are what I call, this attack, the first wave are what I call demonstration attacks. We decided to do it in midday with good sunlight. Midday, we're shooting cruise missiles, right? Because we knew that most guys aren't shooting into air boxes like they did around Baghdad. They could shoot down all these missiles. We know that. And Iran, those missiles sometimes have to fly 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get to their targets. We wanted Iranian people to see these mushroom clouds going up all over the city. We wanted to show that Ayatollah Khamenei's compound was destroyed. We wanted to be the first people to come out and say, we're killing those evil leaders that are putting you down. But remember, 90 million people out of 93 million are going to be watching Al Jazeera. They're going to be watching TV, and they're going to be going shopping for pomegranates and dates. And they're going to talk about it. But here's what's not going to happen. I am a student of resistance warfare. I like to think of myself as an amateur scholar of the Special Operations Executive, the occupation of the resistance in the occupation of France, and special operations going back to where, the beginning of the slave rebellions in the United States. Let me tell you, unless you have already set up infrastructures in that country that are resistant to being captured, interrogated, and killed, or killed by the tens of thousands, even if you put in Starlinks in there, the guy that's going to turn you in is the guy that's moving the donkey cart down the street, who's going to mention to the Rev Guard guys that you're handing out leaflets. and then he's going to continue moving the donkey down the street. Okay, their way of life is not going to change
No,
until every person in Iran is suffering at the level of 1979, right?
exactly.
The repression of the Shah of Iran, shooting and rioting in the streets, tens of thousands, if not a million activists armed, ready, and they had Islamic fervor on their side. And they
Yeah,
fought to bring back the Ayatollah Khomeini, the restoration of Islam into Iran, real Shia Islam into Iran, fervent, hardcore, beat yourself in bloody and Ashra. Listen, I have had to operate as a Muslim in my career, what I call being a tactical Muslim. But I've also lived as a Sunni Muslim. But when I was in Iraq, I prayed at the shrine of Ali and I prayed at the shrine of Imam Hussein. I've been inside all of them and had personal tours with them, and I saw the religious fervor of
yeah,
them during Ashura there. And I, as a Muslim, a Sunni Muslim, who they wanted to convert to Shia, right, was considered an honored guest. Every person in those buildings saw me as a person that was being enlightened.
yeah.
And this is what they want for the other 85% of
Mm.
Islam. So dropping bombs on the regime is going to give you two things. One, a class of people who are going to go, well, that was interesting. And then the class of people who are going to go, well, I don't want America dropping bombs on my machine, Bag Bag America, right? Which is death to America in Farsi. And then there's going to be that tiny sliver who'll be like, yay, we're going to have access to PlayStations and a new 2026 Toyota Corolla and
Yeah,
opportunities to go to Europe and buy a BMW. I have seen this, these young men all over the world
yeah,
emigrating, trying to get to Europe so they can get closer to FIFA games and opportunity in the West. And that's not what is driving this. I do not
no,
see a blood revolution. Do you?
no. No, I don't. And because, the whole Basij, how many hundreds of thousands of Basij are there? How many hundreds of thousands?
Yeah,
There
something
are,
like 500.
yeah. I mean, and they're not going to go home. They're going to keep beating whoever pops up. And we've had this over and over again. And for it's one thing to degrade a regime, but these then the diaspora imagines that the Iranians will rise up and be united about something, and it's like that's why we say they've been Chalabied, because it's as crazy as Chalabi's fantasies were. And this is going to be the same, because as you were saying, these people, most people in Iran, I would say, hate the regime, but still, they can't take power on the back of US and Israeli bombs. And that's just not going to happen. And most of them still fight for their country of sorts. And I think it's very, there's not a united opposition in any way, shape, or
Yep.
form. It's all over the place. And this is going to be is just going to be a quagmire.
Yeah.
The hardcore regime people will still be there. There'll be hundreds of thousands, and they will make sure that there's no stability until they can take over again.
Yeah.
And they will do as much as they can to ignite fires in as large a part of the Middle East as they can. And
To
we all
answer,
know, yeah, and we all know, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, etc. And guess what? Now you mentioned initially the strike on the Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. There's also a Shia majority in Bahrain
yes.
and in northeast Saudi Arabia. And that's also why these Arab regimes have not wanted this. They've all, the Gulf Arabs have always disliked the Iranians and all the mistrust that you spoke about. But on the other hand, the consequences of what would happen if it was. If someone tried to topple the regime is always what has made them say, "Hey, hey, hey! This is not a bright idea," and it is a crazy idea. It's insane, and it'll turn really bad.
Yeah. To answer your
Ugly.
question, first, for some of the people who are watching, I'm going to do a recap as we start writing up here. First, if everybody hit those little hearts off to the side. Look, we all have bags under our eyes. I've been awake since 2:30. We all have bags under our eyes, but what we want to do is get more people on here. We're gonna broadcast for about an hour and a half, until for another hour, I guess. And we're going to start taking your questions. But you have to hit those little hearts there to get the algorithm to move up. The Basij are the civilian volunteer force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. There are 800,000 active members of the
Yeah.
Basij. And if you wonder who was shooting all those civilians in the street, there are reports of between 10,000 and 50,000 dead. I'm not sure I can buy the 50,000 dead number, but I could definitely believe 10,000 dead in a
Yeah.
country of 93 million people. It's the Basij.
Yeah.
These are the guys who today are going to come out onto the street, and they're going to take over traffic. They're going to take over. They're going to sit at every street corner in every town, in every village, in every city with their AK-47 rifles, their really bad, load-bearing gear, and 3 or 4 magazines for the defense of the regime.
Mm.
These are the people who must be eliminated in order to change the regime. The Basij has 25 million card-carrying members. So that's people who join the Basij for, it's like being a Nazi in the 1930s, right? If you want to do any business, you have to be a card-carrying member of the Nazi party, right? And if you don't live in a Philip Kerr novel and you're the one guy who works for the Nazis who wasn't a member of the Nazi party, you're not going to get any advancement.
No.
And in Iran, it requires you to be loyal to the regime or at least show fealty to the regime. So that's 25 million people out of 93 million people. If the regime, I bet you 99% of those people aren't coming out onto the streets, but they do support Islam, Shia Islam, they support
Yeah.
the imamate, of the Ayatollahs, right? They believe in their version of again Shia Islam and supporting those groups around the world, including the Hashib Shabi, the Iraqi version. Hashib Shabi are the Iraqi version of the Bashti, right? They
Yeah.
are the popular mobilization forces. They are the Shia militias which cropped up after the Iraqi army found in 2014. They didn't have enough capability to take on ISIS,
Mm.
right? So the Iranians armed the shit out of them, gave them a
And
lot
we
of
armed the shit
capability.
out of them also because we didn't want to fight out ISIS ourselves. So the Americans and the Europeans actually supported the popular mobilization forces,
Yeah.
as insane as it was.
Until they started shooting rockets at
Eh,
us, right? Right? It's like, whoa, wait a minute. We want you to. So this is what the Hashib Shabi is in Iraq. Um, Hezbollah in Lebanon, which was decapitated, but its manpower wasn't all taken away. It was only the
No.
key members, and they have reformed, but they are sort of defanged because they can't get near the Israeli border. But they could sure as shit overthrow the country of Lebanon. They could say, full disclosure here,
Yeah.
started in 1983 in Beirut, Lebanon, in the height of the Civil War. Okay.
Yeah.
Believe me, I saw over 800. What? How many people got killed in that first year that I was there? Americans and Israelis and French. Over 350, almost 400 people
Yeah.
died in just suicide attacks, just
Yeah.
5 or 6 suicide attacks. So they could not look south, they could look north and start saying, we're going to
Yeah.
resolve this Christian problem. We're going to resolve
Ex-
this. We're taking over Lebanon at the street level,
yeah.
right? So that will change things. The Israelis will have to reinvade Lebanon. They could overthrow the Lebanese army and take all their weapons and go, "Hey, thanks. We don't have to rearm through Iran. We're taking all of the weapons America has supplied, and we're going to dominate the Christian areas." You never know what's going to happen over there. Yemen already announced they're closing the Bab el Mandab waterway, the
Yeah.
straits between the Arabian Gulf and Africa in the bottom of the Red Sea. That is going to change the price of shipping astronomically.
Yep.
Astronomically, the price of shipping now, as ships have to go all the way around the Cape of Good Hope
Yeah.
to go and avoid being struck. Yemen has the capability. They have surface to air missiles. They still have ballistic
Mhm.
missiles that the Iranians have given them. They have a limited
Yep.
inventory, but suicide guys on boats,
Mm.
that's a thing.
Yep.
That's the thing. Also, they have the ability to hit Saudi Arabia. And the hits that were taken in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia this morning, we don't know which direction they came from. Probably came from Iran, but they could just as equally have come from Yemen. And it
Yeah.
also shows the Gulf states have not mastered how to use these air defense systems we gave them.
No.
They are taking hits that the U.S. Army and the Air Force would have shot down in a New York minute. They just
Yeah.
don't have that ability. What do you think?
They even did that a few years ago when first the Iranians and later the Houthis attacked them directly, and that was just a little prelude, I would say, by drones, wasn't it? It wasn't even missiles mainly. But you
Mhm.
know what the big thing about the Basij,
Mm.
and this is for all the trouble that we had in Iraq, this is nowhere near, Saddam Hussein's structure where they all just withered away and
Oh, yeah.
ran away in their underwear, etc., and just left. These guys are not going to go away, and they're brainwashed and they are hardcore and they're willing to kill as many civilians as it takes. And that's the really really tough thing, and that's also why this fantasy of the people rising up remains a fantasy, because these several 100,000 hardcore members, they will keep beating and keep killing for as long as it takes, and that's
You know,
that's the scary part.
there's a component of this that look, I've been involved in these operations since like I said, 1985 was the first time I deployed to the Gulf. Did a whole bunch of other operations in there, and then in 1988 came back to the Gulf, fought the Iranians in 1988 when they had no capability, no real capability. They have
Exactly.
capability now, based on the one battle I was in, the Battle of Syria Island, where they fired off their last anti-ship missile and missed us. The Iranians were like, "That's not happening twice." Okay. Now they have thousands of missiles there, and I have a bad feeling we're going to be seeing those manifest themselves. They don't just have to shoot them at U.S. warships, they can fire them at oil tankers just to see ships burning. The problem with oil tankers is if they're full, and I learned this in Operation Earnest Will, right? All those years we were escorting oil tankers from Kuwait to out of the Gulf. Um, Throwing and during the Iran-Iraq War, when I used to watch Exocet missile attacks by Iraqi fighter jets, F-1s, it's like throwing a brick. No, it's throwing a firecracker into a mud pond.
Mm.
And yes, there will be an explosion, but it will be an explosion of mud. Okay.
Yeah.
And the ships rarely burn. And then when they do burn, when they're put out, they can be recommissioned. I mean, it's a show, it's a demonstrative tool, a demonstrative weapon system, but it is not a weapon system that you can really, really show to great effect. It's a fear weapon more than anything.
Yeah.
However, the the Emirati Navy, the Qatari Navy, the Saudi Navy, the United States Navy, the Kuwaiti Navy, and Bahrainis have all said they are now going to go out and defend their coast. And you could see the funny thing is, somebody wrote Iraq has silkworm missiles. Iran has silkworm missiles. No,
Yeah.
they don't have silkworms. They got rid of that old ass missile long ago. They have the Chinese version of the Exocet missile and better. The C-802, C-804, all of these C-801 anti-ship missiles. These things are low, fast, and can hit shit. So they may come out in a demonstration probably tonight. They're going to be rallying all their Basji, will get into whatever small boats that they have, and they may do the 1987 scenario. You are now going to land
Yeah.
on Iraq, on Saudi Arabia. You're going to land, and we're going to set fire to those fields manually, and we're going to
Yeah.
we're going to seize them. Gulf states armies, I've been around them. I've served with them. I was in Desert Storm at one point with the Saudi invasion force off of in Kuwait proper,
Mhm.
and they're okay-ish, but they got their
If
asses handed to them by a bunch of Houthi guerrillas in Yemen.
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
exactly.
they took grievous losses in the hundreds
Yeah.
from a bunch of guys who were literally fighting in flip-flops.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Eh,
that this thing could go badly is not an understatement.
No, and I will say I'm also quite confident because if we just go back 9 months, the Iranians were taught a lesson because they were really humiliated back last summer, and they wouldn't have gone and laid on the couch for those 9 months. With the degrading of the air defense and how easily the Israelis could penetrate it, etc., etc.
Mhm.
They would have cooked up whatever they could in those 9 months to make sure they could retaliate more efficiently. Because I'm sure they overestimated their own ability for air defense, etc., etc. And once they
Right.
were shown to be quite weak last summer, they would have used that time now to to really retaliate asymmetrically.
Yep.
They've planned these responses. I'm afraid that's the likely scenario.
So I'm reading a report here from OSINT Defender, who I personally know. I've been to his house. And it says the UAE Ministry of Defense has announced successful interception of a second wave of ballistic missiles fired by Iran, with fragments falling in scattered area of Abu Dhabi's, including Saadiyat Island, which is just off the coast. My wife built Saadiyat Island, designed it, laid it out, built it out of a mud flat. So I'm very proud of that. That's where the new Guggenheim and the new Louvre Museum are located. Khalifa City. Khalifa City is further
Yeah.
west. Banias Island, Mohammed bin Zayed City. That's Mohammed bin Zayed Military City.
Ah,
Uh,
yeah,
and Falah Island. So
yeah.
and there are pictures of the components there of Iranian ballistic missiles. The fact is that they are carrying these out, and that the Emiratis were taken by surprise when they were read into this program. They knew that this operation was going to happen, and they still managed to get in hits. I got to tell you, that video of Fifth Fleet headquarters, for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to show this video now. This is the
Ah,
video of the impact of Fifth Fleet headquarters getting hit, blowing it literally sky high. Let me
yeah.
tell you something about that base. I lived on that base. I've been in that headquarters building. I'm sure we evacuated staff. The Fifth Fleet Command is at sea. Um, but that base is built deliberately low. It is nondescript. We have a lot of support buildings, commissary, Baskin Robbins, all the important things. But for them to get a direct hit on that base with such a big weapon, anybody who was in shelters doesn't matter. You were safer across the highway in the civilian apartment buildings, right? And
Yeah.
of course, the shock wave will damage all of the electronics and equipment. So I'm sure nobody was there. We tend to go to sea. We go out on the command ship, or we can shift flag to a warship and operate from there. Can still command and control from there. Very, very fascinating. But nobody was there to stop it. U.S. Forces Air Defense did not, was stationed there and chose, I don't know whether they chose not to intercept it or it just peeled through,
Yeah.
but a direct hit on Fifth Fleet headquarters sounds to me like somebody failed massively.
Yeah.
Um, what say you?
Yeah. I mean, they would have stopped it if they could. So it looks to be a fail. What do you think, Malcolm? The Iranians would have planned in the Strait of Hormuz, because they would have planned. I imagine, asymmetrical warfare in the Strait.
Sure.
Uh, uh, Thousands of small boats. I imagine.
Yeah, what time is it? It's about 5 p.m. there. First off, they knew this was coming. The
Yeah.
question is, the regime has various levels of escalation. These ballistic missiles, the fact that they were deployed and were ready to fire, okay, within hours tells you that they had a retaliation deployment plan ready.
Yeah.
They were already, these missiles are out there. The hardest part with the Iranian regime is that the long range missiles, the ones that can hit Israel, the ones that can hit deep into other countries, those they don't have a lot of launchers. They have missiles. They don't have a lot of launchers. And so those launchers have to launch, scoot, throw a cover on themselves, go to a rearm refuel site, put another missile on it in a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours, they can come back, go to alternate launch site number one, number two, number three, and shoot. But we've already seen video. There's video footage of Predator drones over like Isfahan, over Shiraz.
Okay.
We are operating in an environment where at this point, if the Iranian Air Force isn't destroyed, I don't know what we're doing. I mean, the Israelis didn't even bother with it in their
No.
last attacks. We didn't bother them. We didn't attack any air bases. I don't know about their dispersal plan, but I worked the Iran-Iraq War and I worked the post-war when we were doing Operation Desert Storm and then
Yeah.
Iraqi Freedom. Always kept an eye on the Iranian air bases. I could probably tell you if I had a notepad, the order of battle of every one of those bases. And every few months, I like to go and check it. They're
Yeah.
not flying combat air patrols. They are not challenging in the air. I don't know whether we've done what we're excellent at doing, which is buying off the commanders of these forces.
Yeah.
We bought off 10 divisions of Iraqis. I mean, literally called
Yeah.
these guys, said, we're going to get you a safe house in Abu Dhabi. I told you that Baghdad Bob, the spokesman for Saddam Hussein, was my dentist's father-in-law in Abu Dhabi. And he
Comical
goes, "Oh,
Ali.
you want to meet him? Come down to this cafe at this time, and I'll introduce you." And sure as shit, there's Baghdad Bob. Turns out he had been working for the CIA and Saudi intelligence for years. And it's like, well, okay. So we're good at this. We may have bought off the commander of the Air Force
Yeah.
and said, hey, keep them on the ground. You can keep, if you fly, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't
But
know.
again, that there are so many parts of the Iranian security forces that are brainwashed to an extent where I really don't think it's possible. It's a different species than Saddam's corrupt forces that just
Yeah.
ran away in their underwear. I think this is a whole different ball game.
It is. And I want to show you guys another photo. I just said double ouch to this on Twitter, and the commentary here is never forget what you're fighting for. Ouch. 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 And there's another one that has a picture of Trump and Bibi Netanyahu that says Operation
Yeah.
Epstein.
Yeah.
This is no, it's not about Epstein. It's really about what we all know, which is this is Trump joining a very long-term Israeli plan to neutralize Iran, and he has been cutting this deal with the Gulf state leadership for a while. However, I will tell you this: having lived in Abu Dhabi in total peace for 10 years, 10 years of me going out and running on the Corniche every morning and taking my dogs out on Friday morning at 7 a.m. and terrifying the 10,000 Pakistani cricket players because, they're terrified of dogs. And my two little, my, and this dog terrified the thousands of Pakistani cricket players every Friday morning. Two little baby beagles would go out and wreak havoc. But it's a city of great peace,
Mm.
luxury, insane amounts of luxury.
Yeah.
If the Iranians stop attacking that base and some of this debris starts hitting downtown, you hit the Corniche, you hit the malls by complete accident. If
Yeah.
I were the Iranians, I'd put one right into the freaking, Emirates Palace to
Yeah.
remind all of his super uber duper rich friends who stay at $1,000 a night hotel. We have the ability to take away some of the things you like.
Yeah.
That, or Yas
Yeah.
Island F1 Marina or
Yeah. Exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Hey, it will shatter. Or if they just hit Dubai, boom, 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 boom. They won't because they need the trade from the United Arab Emirates. The Emirates
Yeah.
turns a blind eye to all the billions of
Yeah.
millions of dollars of trade coming across from Dubai Creek going up to Qashem Island in Iran or Bandar Abbas.
Yeah.
Um, that things could change, but now in Qatar, Kuwait, since Desert Storm in 1991, this is the first time their peace has been really shattered, and that they really know this isn't like that one drone that they fired from Yemen 2 years ago that hit a fuel truck, that hit a logistics truck at Abu Dhabi airport.
Yeah.
This is missiles falling from the sky like you're
Yeah.
Israel and
Yeah.
blowing up in your city, attacking American bases. You could get a very quiet push to make sure that the Americans, hey, maybe the Americans need to go somewhere else. You met your objectives. And that's what the Iranians are banking on.
Yeah.
They're banking on this strategic, it's now a regional war. Done,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to hear
Yeah.
anybody say this is the US Israel war with Iran. It is now the everybody at war with Iran war.
Yeah.
Do they intend to evacuate Americans from Abu Dhabi? Interesting question. Um, First off, we did not put out any notice to all mariners, right? No
Uh,
TAMs. This war
ex-
went off like this. I just saw an image there. I've spent so much time there working these missions. There are about 25 aircraft stacked off to the west of Abu Dhabi, ironically over Abu Musa Island, an island that the Iranians
yeah.
occupied from the UAE. The UAE may go back and invade it this week, not joking, and take that island back.
The
But
tun.
they're going to start landing again once they get an all clear. But there's no evacuating. Okay, you're there now. Dubai
Yeah.
International Airport, Sharjah Airport. Sharjah Airport has the best chance of getting all those Russian tourists out, right?
Yeah.
But Dubai International, Abu Dhabi Airport, those places are all under the gun. So Dubai International and Sharjah are the two best chances to get out. A lot of people are going to jump in their cars and they're going to drive straight over to Muscat, Oman, because
Yeah.
Oman is the Switzerland of this whole Arabian Gulf
Exactly.
region. Nothing's hitting them. They are the chief negotiators.
Mm.
The Sheikh Qaboos family has
Yeah.
always played it straight with both sides and allowed no U.S., even British bases there recently.
Exactly.
So everyone's going to start going to, everyone who's got money is going to start going over to Muscat, Oman. And the beaches are awesome over there.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Exactly.
you can move your vacation from, from
Dubai to
Jumeirah Beach, over to the Sheraton or the Taj in
yeah.
Muscat.
Yeah. Malcolm, should we just talk a little bit about the allegations and the so-called justification for the war and the nuclear program?
Yeah.
Because on my TV here in Denmark a few hours ago, the idiots were playing Steve Witkoff and and his bullshit about the Iranian nuclear file. I will say, if I'll just start briefly, but you know, there's nothing for me to indicate whatsoever that there is a an imminent threat from this program at this point in
Mm,
time. I will say we all need to remember that it was Donald Trump who pulled out of the JCPOA, the nuclear agreement, under his first administration,
mhm.
under this alleged maximum pressure campaign that never really materialized in
Yeah.
maximum pressure, and since then. That was when all the safeguards around the program were abolished by the Iranians because Donald Trump exited the deal,
Yeah.
and that's why they came close. But there's nothing to indicate at this point in time that they have gone closer, because what happened this summer, we can always discuss Trump's claim about obliteration, which was nonsensical and just bullshit. And
Well,
he's repeating it now, meaning it wasn't obliterated this summer as he has claimed.
well, hold that thought.
Yeah.
We're at the top of 8 o'clock. And what I want to do is just do a recap of everything
Oh, yeah.
for we're pushing almost 1,000 people now. Everybody who's here right now, hit that little heart off to the side. Also, if you haven't done it yet, go to the top where you see Black Man Spy and press that gray oval, and Jaacob Kaarsbo and my accounts are there. If you haven't subscribed to Jacob, I've got almost 100,000 followers. You should be following Jacob. Jacob is what we we're two old spies, right? Two old spies literally having coffee. And both of us have worked this region for decades. So I want you to follow Jacob. Now, let me give a recap for everyone who's here. We have almost 1,000 people here. The United States is at war with Iran. Let me rephrase this. The United States is at war in cooperation with Israel. So the US and the Israelis are at war with Iran at midday Tehran time. Very interesting time instead of our usual 1 a.m. through 4 a.m. At midday Tehran time, in broad daylight, the United States carried out airstrikes and launched hundreds of cruise missiles, and is now in the process of dropping thousands of munitions on Iran. Israel is carrying out these operations as well. U.S. aircraft are refueling the Israelis. So it is a joint United States Israel aerial attack on Iran. President Trump at 2 a.m. put out a video, 2 a.m., which, by the way, actually 3 a.m., which, by the way, was 12 noon in Iran on a Saturday, which is market day. So they're not going to kill anybody that they can't actually get in the government. Anyone who was out shopping with their wives and kids, that's it. We launched the attack, and here's what has been struck thus far: Iranian ballistic missile facilities. According to President Trump, his objective was one, regime change to give the Iranians the ability to rise up and overthrow the regime. We are seeing no evidence of that in the first 6 hours of this war. The second was to eliminate the ballistic missile capability that is threatening Israel and threatening its neighbors, and also the production and storage facilities. Those are ongoing. That also includes the Iranian nuclear program. And then third, they stated the U.S. Navy will be attempting to destroy the Iranian Navy and its naval capabilities to make the Persian Gulf the Arabian Gulf and make it safe for navigation. Since that time, here is what has happened. Iran has struck back. It has bombarded Israel, including multiple strikes in Israel, including at least one direct hit in Tel Aviv. Other places that have been hit is in the north, off of Haifa. We saw a ballistic missile get shot down off Haifa, and hits in the south in the Negev desert near Dimona, the nuclear power plant. They always try to hit the nuclear power plant and the nuclear weapons storage facility. Jordan has been hit and is undergoing attacks and shooting down ballistic missiles there. U.S. bases in Kuwait, including the Army's Central Command Forward, Iran. The U.S. Navy base in Manama, Bahrain, Naval Support Activity Bahrain, where I lived and operated out of, U.S. Fifth Fleet Headquarters. U.S. Fifth Fleet Headquarters took a direct hit, which you can see on video, and I will replay that video in a minute. We don't know if the headquarters operations center was hit or they just hit the Baskin Robbins in the mall, the mini mall. We don't know, but they did hit the base with a direct hit. No matter what, that base is small and it's low. It would have shook every piece of electronics out of operations with a direct hit from the way there. As a matter of fact, if I can get that video up in a minute, I will show it to you. Moving south, multiple hits were announced around Doha, Qatar, possibly Udeid Air Base. Some of these things that are being called hits may, in fact, be air defense shooting down missiles, and you're hearing the explosions. United Arab Emirates, Dhafra Air southwest of Abu Dhabi was hit. There's reports of one civilian casualty. A woman was killed, but that's the only thing we know. We did receive reports of surface-to-air missile intercepts. We're shooting down a second wave, and debris is landing all over the city of Abu Dhabi. Full disclosure, I lived in Abu Dhabi for 10 years. My wife was a landscape architect who did many, many mega projects there, totaling in the billions. The debris is raining down on all of our projects right now. There are no reports of Dubai being hit, Dubai International or other places. Sheikh Zayed Military City has been hit, as it's expected to be. That's where a lot of the surface-to-air missile batteries would be hit. Oman has received no reports of being attacked. In Yemen, Yemen has announced that they are closing the Bab el-Mandab waterway. We can start expecting to see reports of ships being hit by ballistic missiles, drones, and suicide bombs in no time. So that Navy is being attacked by the U.S. Navy. We don't have any reports on what's being hit, although we did see one spectacular video of 21 U.S. Navy cruise missiles flying one after another along a single track headed into Iran. So it must have been one of those avenues where their air defenses were low, the radars were separate, and we put missiles through that box. Those missiles can think. They can actually, reprogram or reprogram to go along certain tracks. If they detect threats, they can see other things. So the United States is at war with Iran. Trump's video that he put out at 3 a.m. this morning made an interesting comment, I thought, Jacob, when he said it is a military operation and we expect to take losses. We expect to lose troops.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
that is not winning in the United States way of war. That is, in fact, losing if you look at it, you know, wings. But for Trump, this is about exercising power. He is carrying out, he is essentially said, this is an operation we should have done over the last 50 years, and only he had the nerve to do it. Yes, he may, in fact, be embroiling the United States in a war that doesn't last months, but could go on for years.
Yeah.
Jacob.
A real forever war that is much larger than any forever war that we have seen on this on this planet for years and years and years. So yeah, it's going to be a wasp's nest. The Iranians are prepared. There's no plan for stabilization and what is to come. And as you said in Trump's statement, he was talking about the people rising up and removing the regime. As we discussed in the previous hour, that's unlikely to happen. And whatever happens inside of Iran, there's likely to be a power vacuum, and there's likely to be a proliferation of asymmetrical warfare throughout the Middle East. To be honest, I don't think they've planned for any of these things. This is about thumping the chest and so on. And that's how far their mindset goes, it appears.
Oh, I've just to let everybody know, there is another video footage I told you around naval security, naval support activity, Bahrain. Wow, the headquarters building took a direct hit from a Shahed drone, and here is the video footage of that. I'll turn my camera around. You can watch my laptop. This building with all the little white domes on it, little white radars. That's U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters. And here's the moment that the Shahed drone hits it. As we say, not positive.
A Shahed drone, but they should be able to shoot that down
You
easily.
can see it. Okay, that's the local Bahrainis. We're saying in Arabic, it's a guided airplane, and then he was going "Udrab, udrab, udrab." He's going to hit. So
Yeah.
they called that one play by play there. That's so that was U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters. Wasn't a ballistic missile.
No,
Yikes! That
but
cannot be. Wow. There's a
but that,
new
that's
video
what's
out.
puzzling me, Malcolm. That they can't shoot it down. That's not that hard. I mean, taking out a Shahed drone or
Yeah, well,
even
there's new.
100.
This is new video from the base, which shows it took multiple hits.
Oh
That
shit!
base is on fire, stem to stern, as we say. So there's multiple sheets. And there's a component of this war we haven't heard about this morning. We've been hearing about ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. They have cruise missiles and they have Shahed drones. And if they had launched them 3 hours ago, they would be hitting about now. But Manama, Bahrain, U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters, place that I lived in for a year. I lived on that base, taking very serious hits. I'm sure. And the easiest way to survive those hits, run your ass out the main gate, go across the highway, and go get a coffee over at the Gulf Hotel. So, I mean, don't be at that base.
No,
It's as simple as that. And I hope we haven't had
but
many losses.
it seems like they've hit a fuel tank with the black plume of smoke.
Yeah, smoke. Yeah, well, there's a lot. It's a support activity, so there's not just fuel there. The Kuwaiti Navy corvettes are just down pier from that. But to get that, to cause a major conflagration like that, you had to have hit it more than once. You
Yeah,
saw them hit
yeah,
Fifth
yeah.
Fleet headquarters. The base itself is being out there. Um, Interesting. So the so while that war's going on, we just got an update from the Cubans. about the kind of weapons that the Americans they killed the other day were carrying, and it was quite an arsenal.
Okay.
Amy McGrath made a great statement. You might remember her. She's the Marine fighter pilot. I'm going on her podcast next week. And she
Okay.
says, I served 3 combat tours over 20 years of war in the Middle East. Trump had an entire State of the Union address to make the case for going to a war with Iran. He did not. Congress is absent, and for years it has ceded its war making powers. Now Trump has started another foreign war.
Yeah.
And you're right. Timofirov. I love this guy. I don't know if you guys know who
Yeah.
he is. This guy wrote one of the seminal books about very, very, very early Islamic fundamentalism called The Attack on Mecca. And it was about a group that was formed along with Osama bin Laden's younger brother that stormed the Grand Mosque in Mecca in, I believe it was 1980. No, it wasn't 89. 1981, 82. I can't recall, but this guy is the foreign affairs correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. And he makes that same point. Guys with rifles and machine guns on the headquarters building could have shot those shaheeds down.
Yeah.
No defenses against shaheeds during this operation. And
Exactly.
now, if Bahrain's taking it like that, that means other cities are going to start getting it. And then you have idiots like this, TimKim.com, who is a pro-Moscow dickwad,
Okay.
announcing that I'm with Iran. So I expect to hear from Jackson Hinkle at any point that he's here with Iran. A lot of
Yeah.
these
Yeah. Yeah.
guys who are here. So
Crazy.
please.
Crazy. It's a bit. I saw one of our viewers talking about. Is this against America? No, this is not against America, and this is not about rooting for Iran in any way, shape, or form. Both Malcolm and I have fought these guys, and they are up to no good at all in the Middle East. But this is about debating, the wisdom of how this operation is carried out. And unfortunately, it doesn't look very clever. And I'm afraid that the US is going to take
Ah,
substantial casualties
yeah.
because it's not thought through. And I'm also afraid that this will cause even further instability in the Middle East, and that's going to be a problem for all of us.
I told you
So it's just to declare what this is all about.
I told you there are multiple apartments across the highway from the base, and this is a
Yeah,
clearer view of the Shaheed drone destroying the base's data center right there. You'll see it in a moment. They blow up the SATCOM center. So that was our primary data link to the United States. Uh, comm center goes, and that was with a Shaheed drone. Expect a lot more of this today. Data, as we watch open source intelligence, which is what this is, we're going to be getting this war in slow motion. It's moving. There are too many hits going on simultaneously, and
yeah,
people are having to sort out a lot of things in there. But that came from Menchosint, showing that the United States Fifth Fleet Comm Center they had this thing on there, um,
yeah.
you know, prepared to hit this thing. Da, 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 da. So yeah, they said
Exactly.
all of U.S. warships were out of Bahrain, except for an old British ship that was dry docked there that wasn't being part to it. Let's
Okay.
talk about the nuclear component of this because you mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier. We started that discussion about the Iranian nuclear program and how this was supposedly simultaneously part two of this. As I recalled, last June, I believe June 25th, we supposedly obliterated completely that
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, and I think they even sacked some of the intelligence analysts and people who debated that claim. because the master demanded full compliance with his view of the world from the intelligence community. Isn't that right, or am I wrong on that one?
Yeah. Oh,
I think
yes.
they've sacked a few people.
Naysayers in the CIA's Near East branch,
Yeah.
these guys, anybody who wanted to introduce any common sense to this story, any belief that this was nothing other than awesome and that it had been obliterated, they get rid of these guys.
Mm.
Look, I said this on the very day those attacks occurred. These people are not stupid. The Iranians are a very sophisticated peoples. And okay, somebody says Trump. Oh, Trump visited a Whataburger yesterday in Texas.
Okay.
That thing just before his attacks.
Yeah.
Uh, so that the Iranians are very sophisticated. They know when it's time to move their stuff. They're not going to say, "Oh, let's leave everything right here for the Americans to attack it again." They will have two, three, four different chess moves for this.
Yeah.
And that will be it will be fascinating. But you're never going to get it all. They probably have dispersed it into 100
Yeah.
different 1 kilogram components sitting in their basements with their kids,
Yeah.
upstairs playing around. So long as it's in a lead box the size of a water barrel, you could get quite a bit of the nuclear material out of there. The
Yeah.
question is, are we just hitting Furduz again?
Yeah.
Natanz again?
Yeah.
Isfahan again?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
but the first thing they mentioned, though, was ballistic missile capability, which is essentially saying that you're doing this so that Tehran cannot bombard Tel Aviv. And by doing it jointly with the Israelis, we've now tied ourselves to the fate of, to this being a Netanyahu-driven war,
Yeah.
if not
Yeah.
an Epstein-driven war.
Yeah, if not. But the thing is, you could see this coming. It was so obvious because Trump went into these alleged negotiations in Geneva with the requirement that the Iranians should be allowed no enrichment whatsoever. Zero enrichment was what they said. And, of course they can't. And that's never been a problem. And there were those, guardrails on the Iranian program, and the original nuclear deal, the JCPOA, wasn't
Mhm.
perfect by any way, shape, or form, but it was way better than abolishing it, because that was when all the trouble with the enrichment really started.
Hey, quick aside, real quick, because I'm going to give you updates and videos as I see them. This is one of the problems with using advanced technology. I'm going to show you a video from Doha, Qatar, and a Patriot missile has successfully intercepted an Iranian ballistic missile. But the booster and the warhead separated, and this booster is coming down in downtown Doha, and it
Oh shit!
has all of its explosive force. So there's the booster.
Oops. Ooh.
And you see that orange smoke?
Yeah.
That is sulfuric acid. That is
Yeah.
the chemical that's inside there. It is deadly if you breathe that. If you breathe any of that, you're going to die almost instantly. This is
Yeah.
these are Pakistanis, it looks like. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they're speaking Urdu. They're not speaking Arabic. But this war is ongoing as we speak here this morning. I know we're supposed to be coming up with the Save America movement with Ken Harbaugh, Navy pilot, later on this morning to talk about this. But hey, guys, the United States is at war. So what I'd like you to do, we want to keep this going. We'll go till, I don't know, we'll go for another 30 minutes. to the top of the 9 o'clock hour. And then we'll come back later in the day with Save America Movement. They want us to discuss this with
Okay, I
Ken
didn't even
Harbaugh.
see that. Okay, perfect.
And that we had been planning this for a week now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. We've also made war plans.
yes. So, um, all of these things are happening in real time. And, what we want to do is make sure that you're informed because this is not going away. This war is going to happen, is going to continue for, if not, they say several days. The Iranians have a vote in this. And if I were the Iranian regime, I'd say, fuck your timeline. This is going to go for years, for years. So, what I'm going
They'll
to do,
play the long game.
they're going to play, oh, yeah, they're going to play the long game. And if that means activating assets in Bahrain to start uprisings there or to attack the bars at the hotels, that was always a popular one, especially since it's Saturday. There's a lot of Saudis in Bahrain right now doing this, and it ain't coffee or tea. They go there to drink. And they're going to be, the Dammam Bridge is going to be packed heading back to Saudi Arabia today. But we could see this transition from a missile war, an aerial war, into an asymmetric, unconventional war with the Iranians filling the Gulf with hundreds of small boats. I
Yeah.
did that once. We called it the Boghammer high speed boats. They're not
Mm.
Boghammers anymore. Those was Swedish manufactured Boston whalers. But we could, in fact, have hundreds of these small craft out there. We called that bowling for bog hammers, by the way, where we would have
Yeah.
to chase these small squadrons of boats down. Almost impossible. If you put 1,000 of them into the water, they're going to get to the other side of the Gulf. You could see
Swarm attacks.
Iranians
Yeah.
landing in Doha, Qatar, and engaging in running gun battles with the Qatari, Bahraini, Saudi, Emirati forces. They could say, "You want to escalate? We can escalate this to manpower. We have more manpower than you have. Perhaps we will resolve. Maybe we'll invade. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's where it's going to go." So, what do you think about their attacks on the nuclear infrastructure, Jacob?
Yeah, I think I think as I said before, there are no signs that that this justification is really more valid now than what it was earlier on.
Yeah. Mhm.
When you look at Trump's statement that it was about zero enrichment, and that's also what Steve
Insane.
Witkoff has said, which is, I mean, what? Why? I bet that's it's not a problem, and you just take the old nuclear deal, um, and put in the safeguards. And I know the
You
Iranians
know,
were also cheating and pushing the boundaries, but this scale enrichment that they started doing after Trump pulled out, that really put them at the threshold of nuclear grade uranium. Obviously, that was a problem, but that was a problem of Trump's own making,
yeah.
and that's what I think actually degraded the program this summer.
Well,
I have to say, because the Israelis did a really good job, and the US came afterwards.
I have to tell you that eh, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but now it has been proven by Trump's own actions that he tanked the JCPOA in order to carry out the wishes of Israel. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just that simple. Ever since ever since Desert Storm in 1991, Bibi Netanyahu has been saying that Iran is within a week or a month or 2 months of getting an atomic bomb.
yeah,
Now, I said this last June. If Iran was smart, they would detonate a crude atomic bomb. They don't have to use all of their materials. They have enough material there to make a Hiroshima World War II level detonation. I would have blown one just to say,
Yeah.
let's just get this on the table. We may not have one small enough to put on one of our missiles, but I just want to let you know we have the brain. You could do this with university students. The atomic bomb itself, creating critical mass, is not hard. But Iran has been relatively restrained in this
Yeah.
respect. Maybe, and it's not because they overestimate America or overestimate Israel. I say this all the time. Never go to the Middle East to hustle them out of camels, right? Never try to buy camels in the camel souk, you know, because they're good at their game. They are
Yeah.
excellent at their game, you know?
Yeah.
So when we say, oh, we got them to move their nuclear materials or we blew holes in their facilities, they're filling the holes with concrete, not because they intend to use that facility again, but because they know we can only look down and that
Yeah.
our agents who are there may be their agents. Or they want us to see this. They're often 3 or 4 moves ahead of us because they understand that, I mean, the great ruins at Sestafan shows you how old this country
Mm.
is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they
Yeah.
didn't exist as Persia with their language since, 3,000 years. Granted, they weren't a Shia nation until the great Islamic fitna happened in 656. I think it ended in 658.
Yeah.
They haven't been, that's when they became a Shia nation, but they're still a people with a history, a culture, and an intellect that is far more sophisticated than the Americans. I'm going to say that 100
Yeah.
times a day. I've met Iranians, I've talked to them. There's a famous scene from the TV show The Daily Show where they go to the streets of Iran. Please Google this. Look up The Daily Show in Iran, and they interview people on the streets of Iran, and they know everything about America. And the guy who went there, thank you. The guy who went there, you couldn't microwave that, could you? Uh, the guy, I'm asking
Is
for
it
more
popcorn?
coffee.
Popcorn. Popcorn.
So
Popcorn.
the guy who went there was a former Marine reservist. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
And he interviews people and he goes, "These people are too sophisticated." And so he interviews this old man on the street who runs like a barber shop. And this guy names every president from Abraham Lincoln on, backwards, backwards.
Yeah.
From George W. Bush to Abraham Lincoln, and he knows all the parts of, the American government,
Yeah.
legislative, judicial, executive. And then he goes, we're in the city. These people are too sophisticated. So
Yeah.
they drive 2 hours out of Iran and they see a guy who is baling hay in the middle of a field, and they go, let's talk to this guy. And this
Yeah.
guy, he goes, hey, what do you know about America? He goes, oh, New York, Los Angeles. He goes, yeah, everybody knows that. He goes, name me a city in America that's not New York
Yeah.
or Los Angeles. And the
Yeah.
guy goes, San Francisco. He goes, oh, everybody knows that. Washington. Oh, everybody knows that. And he goes, what was it that he said?
Yeah.
He Buffalo. He goes, Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo.
And he goes, I give up. How the fuck do you know about Buffalo, New York? This is a guy in the fields pitchforking hay. And so as an alternative, he goes to Times Square and asks Americans to name a city in Iran. And one guy goes, Ayatollah. And the other guy goes, Baghdad. I mean, these Iranians are not dumb. They live within a culture of politics. And,
Yeah.
to be quite honest, I say this with great earnestness. Everything I have ever really wanted to learn about the Muslim street, the Arab street, the Iranian street, the Muslim street. All you have to do is read Sir Richard Burton's unexpurgated version of 1001 Arabian Nights, right? All the intrigue, the genie's coming down and fucking your princess, or the eunuch going after and taking your wife, cutting off the heads of your viziers. This was real. And we don't understand because we are a very unsophisticated nation, the United States. Denmark, way smarter by 1,000 leagues. But we don't understand why they are doing what they're doing, but they understand what we're doing.
Yeah. I will say one thing to add, Malcolm, about the Iranian calculus, also around the nuclear capacity. What happened if we just look back 2.5 years almost, when the Israelis started to degrade the Iranian presence in Syria and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and really starting taking out those high-ranking IRGC generals in Syria and in Lebanon, and all the Hezbollah leadership. The Iranians lost a lot of deterrence because they perceived that as a way to balance the threat against the regime.
Right.
And then you saw the Israeli attack last summer, and the Americans joining in, somehow degrading the nuclear program somewhat. We don't know to what extent. We can just say it wasn't obliterated, to use
Right.
that Trump phrase. But my sense, my analysis tends towards the Iranians, after that experience where they were really humiliated, being more cautious. And, for them to, because there was a lot of debate at that time, at least here in Denmark, among some of our scholars, that they would start the race for the bomb, the dash for the bomb, etc., etc. I argued the other way around. I said, I think actually this shows a weakness for the Iranian regime, that they have to balance somehow, and that the dash for the bomb, as it's called, would be a dangerous proposition.
Right.
And I have not seen evidence to the contrary. And that's why I'm saying, this is about something very different. This is Bibi, and he's also running into elections this year, et cetera, and is in a bad state. So that could also play into that whole equation. But it's not because I really believe the Iranians, but I actually think that they've been shit scared since this summer, because it showed they were weak.
Yeah. Well, there is another component to this that we haven't discussed. First, I want to answer a question somebody put. They said, "Do you think Iran will hit the United States and retaliate in the United States?" No, not at all. Iranians are smart. They don't want to. They don't want to. They see that there is some value in allowing the American public to be split on this. And it's not about, unfortunately, Donald Trump has not made it about, protecting U.S. service members. This is a guy who he loves the trappings of the military, and he loves what we call bombs, guns, and helicopter rides, right? He loves the use of the military. What he doesn't like is he doesn't like any blowback. And if we lose a helicopter, and it's quite possible we could have an aircraft go down through malfunction, and we have to do a combat search and rescue, and they fly in an MH-22 helicopter or aircraft, and it gets shot down, or it goes down due to that fine dust in the Iranian desert that we learned about in 1979. And since 79, we have been itching for Special Operations Command to go back and prove itself that we can get into Iran and do it, and carry that out. But there is a factor we haven't discussed here that I think it's high time we discuss. Donald Trump literally has been using the U.S. military for oil.
Yeah.
In all of my years of wars fighting in the Middle East, I can tell you I never really thought it was about oil. Even when we were escorting Kuwaiti tankers,
Agree.
it was
Agree.
about freedom of navigation. It was about diminishing Iran's capability. It was about
Yeah.
confronting Iran without escalating into what we have today, which is a regional war. But Trump has been nonstop talking about raising the price of oil. And oil, a couple of weeks ago, Brent crude was going for about $65 a barrel. In Russia, it was selling on the open market for about $45 a barrel, which was starving Russia. And now we started seizing all of these shadow fleet tankers that were supporting Venezuela. But the operation in Venezuela literally came down to oil. Literally told
Yeah.
the oil executives before he informed Congress that they were going to be going into Venezuela, and then had a conference about oil from Venezuela, then started seizing tankers and supposedly selling the oil from those tankers. Same thing with the operations off of Nigeria, where they attacked supposedly an ISIS or a Boko Haram or,
Yeah. Whatever.
group out in the desert with no evidence that any of those Tomahawk cruise missiles, 16 of which we could have used this week, no evidence that those forces were targeting there, but the price of oil jumped up on the basis of it because Nigeria is an oil producing country. All of the countries that are involved right now, I would not be surprised if oil went over $100 a barrel starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what does that do for the United States? The United States stopped pumping drill baby drill, stopped pumping shale oil and oil tars last year or the last 2 years because the
Yeah.
price of oil went below $65 a barrel and it was not viable to pump oil.
Sure.
It
Yeah.
just wasn't viable. US companies shut down thousands of pumps in the last few years. Don't believe me. There's a guy named Mr. Global. This guy is awesome energy expert, and it's just wasn't viable. This war and the price of oil doesn't help Iran. It helps Saudi Arabia. It helps all these other countries, but it really helps Russia. More than
Yeah.
any country right now, Russia's ships are a source of oil that are not going to be cut off by the United States. Yeah, we're grabbing their shadow fleet tankers, but the shadow fleet were doing nefarious things like launching drones, dragging anchors
Yeah.
across, internet cables.
Right
Now,
here.
all those
Right
other ships
here where I'm sitting.
right there. Yes, yeah, it just happened, in Copenhagen. So Malmo. Malmo. They just had the Russians carried out an operation against the French frigate right across the bridge from you, right?
No,
So,
the French carrier.
French aircraft
The
carrier,
Charles
right?
de Gaulle, the carrier.
Amazing. So, but it's quite obvious that this operation is going to have a massive impact on the price of oil. This is a
Yeah.
government that literally removed the words climate change, that has literally defunded all Americans from installing any solar in their homes, any wind in their homes, that is shutting down wind and oil projects with malice for the benefit of companies, removed all gas efficiency standards in the United States. As an intelligence professional, looking at it from the diplomatic intelligence, military, economic perspective, the economic component of this is really about oil. And
Yeah.
I'm afraid to say that there is a component in here that this is a distraction from Operation Epstein Island.
Yeah.
So, all of these things that come into play. No other US presidency could ever really credibly be argued that they wagged the dog, that they
No.
started these wars for the purpose of carrying out multiple other objectives. But this one, it feels real.
And then the next thing, Malcolm, about oil and the price of oil. You know who takes almost all of the Iranian oil? China does.
China. Mhm.
Yeah. So will China let this through as if nothing happened?
Well,
Who-
I think China, and it pains me to say it, but even a couple of years ago, I was saying this. It really breaks my heart to see that China is the adult in the room in the global
Yeah,
world, in the world these days. China and Canada are now the adults in the room with regards to to global stability, to how things should be in the world. We are literally surrendering Pax Americana
yeah,
in 1 year to create a Pax Sinia, right?
yeah,
A China, a Pax China, Chinois, if you want to
yeah,
put it to French
yeah,
or Latin. So we are surrendering that with abandon. The United States, it almost appears as if someone again had read all the Tom Clancy novels and said the only thing America should do is exercise power,
yeah,
imperial power, and only do operations at the pointed edge. It's like people only read military thrillers as operation plans, right? Never the
yeah.
politics behind them. All wars are politics. Was it Machiavelli or Clausewitz who said that all wars are an extension are politics by other means? I think it's
Clausewitz.
Clausewitz, right? Um, but what we are not doing is it's like we don't give two fucks about Sun Tzu in the art of war because he's Chinese, right?
Yeah,
And job one is never have a war. Right? Use other means, use intelligence, use cleverness,
yeah,
understanding, and that dictum that guided you and I throughout our careers.
yeah.
Understand the enemy, know the enemy better than yourself, and you will be victorious in 1,000 battles.
But Malcolm, remember, this is all because of the Norwegians not giving Donald Trump Nobel's Peace Prize. So it's
It's
my
true.
next door neighbors in Norway. It's actually their fault.
The Norwegians came out this morning flat out against this operation, right? So them with their crazy ass liberal values, not recognizing that Trump. My favorite. Okay, we've had some good here this morning. And before we're going to go in about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
And then we'll be back later on. We'll be back, I think, about 10 o'clock with the Save America panel. But there are some good ass memes going on out there this morning. Somebody came out. The name of the mission is Operation Epic Fury. I guess I guess that's supposed to be an extension of Phantom Fury, which was the second Battle of Fallujah in 1984. Urgent Fury, Phantom Fury. We had Urgent Fury, which was the invasion of Panama, if I'm not mistaken. And somebody's like, "No, this is going to be epic." Right? So it's Operation Epic Fury, which is
epic.
something a fucking 10-year-old would have come up with. Right? So that being said, there are some really incredible memes going on out there right
Yeah,
now,
the
which
brain
have
trust,
harnessed.
Malcolm has done it on a signal thread.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
The,
surprised.
the
I
brain
wouldn't be
trust.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if there were people out there um, putting out, signals to Iran that we're willing. Trump himself said it. This is a humanitarian mission. He said that, and that the United States would be willing to give humanitarian aid to the people of Iran if they overthrow the government. So you just go into the streets and die by the tens of thousands. It's not working that way. But I want to show this one. This is
It's like sending a hospital ship to Greenland.
yeah. So here's one of the ones. My only response to this morning was ouch. Right? Another person came back and said that it was Operation Epstein Fury. So, and we showed that one from a few minutes ago. Let me see if I can find it again, in which they said, "Know what you're fighting for. Remember what you're fighting for," and it showed a helmet and a rifle. and a picture inside the top of a helmet of a service member fighting. And it was a picture of Jeffrey Epstein. Whoa, what is this? MiG-29s carrying out combat patrol.
Really?
This is what's happening here is what we call a confidence pass. Okay, now the Air Force is up. Now the game's on. They're gonna be some dogfights. A confidence pass is when you fly your aircraft low over your city to let the people know that you're in the air, right? They better one MiG-29 ain't gonna be enough. You're gonna have to. There's gonna be some dogfights. But I suspect what they're doing is they're now putting in a cruise missile umbrella because now they know all the avenues of approach the United States are there. But the F-22s and stealth fighters can make short work of those MiG-29s, Mirage F-1s,
Yeah.
all those other aircraft, F-4 Phantoms,
But but
ancient
the
ass
real
aircraft.
the real issue here is why the hell haven't they taken them out already? Why are they even allowing them in the air?
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things. I mean, it's a question of priority. If they can maneuver around, if they can maneuver, yeah, Dubai airport is now shut down. So now every aircraft in the Arabian Gulf is diverting back to foreign cities, probably back to Europe or Egypt, for the most part. So Sheikh Maktoum airport is closed. But this is not something you can do in an hour, right? It's something that's going to take time, and a lot of people think that that aircraft carrier we could get 209 sorties off in a day. That's 209 flights off in one day, right? That strikes, but you still got to fly all the way out there. Iran, these things are not 15-minute flights. They're 45. The closest is 45 minutes to an hour. That's
Yeah.
flying from off of Fujairah going to Bandar Abbas. And we're going to hit the same damn stupid places we always hit. Yes, we probably took out Bandar Abbas Airport, but the Iranians aren't stupid. The F-4s and F-14s that they usually use at Bandar Abbas come from Isfahan and Shiraz. And it's possible we could be using Reaper drones, blowing those up one at a time. We're not getting that level of social media from these people. What is this? Well, China put out high resolution photograph today of the Gerald Ford. That is very high resolution. Off of leaving Suda Bay, Greece, which means they have real time imagery tracking of that. And it's always possible. I literally was writing a Substack called "Iran Could Sink a Carrier." That's now been overtaken by overtaken by events. But Iran does have the ability to change the balance of power here. We could shoot and kill launchers. What is this? Edward Snowden.
Oh,
Okay, whatever. So we could really be going to war here. We're in the first 4 hours of this
yeah,
war. What is it, 9 o'clock? So we're in the first 6 hours of this war. And it's a
yeah.
war, people. This is not a series of U.S. strikes. It's not a retaliation strike. We are now, according to the Geneva Convention, engaged in full armed conflict with a nation, even at a point that they don't announce it or recognize it. All of these countries are technically in a state of armed conflict. The
It's a
United
special
States,
military operation.
oh, don't even start that shit. You know, we really, 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 really don't need that. But technically for Trump, it is a special military operation. So reportedly, Trump is going to make another statement this morning, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So, last thoughts, Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm will be chatting along. Let's find out what's out there for the next few hours. Then people should be just following us, and we'll keep updating and meeting like this to debate what's going on. There's a lot of stuff that presumably a lot has come in. You've been checking up on some of the stuff, but just this hour we've been here, hour and a half, a lot has happened. So yeah, we'll see. And this is not going to end soon, and it's unlikely to end well. Yeah, this is real trouble.
Okay, for those of you who are watching, we're going to be running these lives throughout the day and throughout the next few days. There's 1,500 of us on here right now. We're going to be launching another one here in an hour or so with Save America Movement, which should have Steve Schmidt, Ken Harbaugh, and other experts, Dean Blundell, who will come on and give their opinion. But what we want you to do is watch these. I'm going to tell you right now, I've been watching coverage from CNN. I've been watching coverage from Al Jazeera. The coverage in the United States sucks. I'm going to tell you right now, we are at war, and the analysis level that we're getting is essentially America, great, nothing's going to happen. We're kicking their ass. Unfortunately, I'm watching in real time what people are doing out, and we're doing, Jaacob and I, real-time intelligence analysis as things start. And another thing, I'm on Twitter, and I am 100% being throttled on Twitter. Right now, I put out one 6 hours ago, 4 a.m., saying the United States-U.S.-Iran war has begun. It's gotten 300 likes. I have 1.1 million followers on Twiter. So social media is throttling back.
I've dropped that platform.
How would you say? Elon has spoken. They are only pushing pro-Israel, pro-United States. And now there is one thing that's going to come out. I don't know if it's propaganda. It might have been an accident, but there is a pretty solid confirmed report that a girls' school in southern Iran was hit, and they are showing pictures of dead children. And this isn't something where it's like, oh, I had this happen to me in 1988 when we shot down an Iranian airliner and killed 290 people. Everyone came out and said the Iranians did it themselves to make us look bad. War is dangerous for everyone, and missiles get shot down and they fall on civilians. So it's quite possible that somebody thought it was an IRGC facility. In Desert Storm, cruise missiles were stored in a girls' technical school in Kuwait City. I found that battery of 10 cruise missiles inside it. And sometimes our targeteers think, oh, that's an IRGC facility, and it's just a kindergarten. We do kill civilians in droves. And that story, if it rises and these bodies start showing up, it may not mean anything to you because you think they're a bunch of towel heads, which is a lot of people say it, but it could get to where people get very upset. And I know people say, well, Gaza, you didn't cry about the children of Gaza. Yes, I did. I hate seeing any civilian killed in a war, but I hate stupid shit and dumbassery more than I hate anything. So with that.
And this is it. This is stupid shit and dumbassery right there.
All right. Jaacob, this is going up on YouTube. If you guys want to watch it again, hear the updates. The United States is at war. We will be back in an hour. Look out for the Black Man Spy. I will be doing real-time intelligence analysis the whole time. So, Jaacob, thanks for coming. I'll see you on the next one.
See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.